Hey, what's up, everybody? So I haven't done a lot of voiceover stuff for my most recent videos. I've been mostly just flying around, having fun with some of the new stuff, some of my new sceneries, and really just kind of taking in all the beauty of it. I've also found that even when I've been recording, I haven't always found like a great video to process for you all. And I say you all in like a kind of a funny sense because there's not many of you, but it's just even for the few people that do watch the videos, I thank you, and it's a lot of fun to interact with you when you do comment. And I'm glad that some of you are enjoying these. I'm voiceovering on this video and doing a little commentary because I enjoy this approach a lot. It was very, should I say, rewarding to carry out pretty well. And I just kind of wanted to share some observations about it. This is the Corey 4 approach into runway 22 at LaGuardia. And I was coming from the south from Myrtle Beach. And, when being an amateur virtual pilot, so to speak, sometimes, I become heavily reliant on the FMS. I'm not perfect when it comes to reading charts. I understand the gist of them. I understand what stars and SIDS are. I understand procedure, but I'm not getting too crazy heavily into these charts and the specifics of them and the minutia. When I'm making my flights, I typically fly for ease, for comfort, and I want to enjoy it. Sometimes I like a challenge. Sometimes I like it to be overly challenging. But generally speaking, I just kind of want to do something fun. I want to be successful at it. I want to make a nice little soft landing and be done, right? But in this case, when I plugged in my flight plan and I went through it in the initial stages of the flight in Myrtle Beach, I was like, I don't really know what to do here because for the 22 approach, you have to swing around to the north side of LaGuardia. You're dealing with Newark on your west. You're dealing with JFK on your east. So I know it's not just kind of free reign to do what you want to do. And the charts weren't very revealing. They weren't really explaining too well what I had to do. In essence, it almost seemed like it was putting me on a path to runway, whatever it is, 4, I think it is. Whatever was the north, when you come in from the south side of LaGuardia. And I knew that wasn't right? And I knew it also wasn't proper procedure to basically fly directly over the airport, swing a major tight 180 and come in on an ILS. It didn't make sense to me. That being said, I wasn't really thinking about, and I wasn't really familiar in my head with the LaGuardia procedures. Some of the other airports I kind of know. Living in Northern Virginia, I kind of know what Dulles' approaches look like. I used to live just south of the airport, and I used to watch airlines coming in for the parallel approaches to runway 1 there. I now live west of the airport, and so I kind of know what planes look like and what they're doing on their SIDS, on their departures. But LaGuardia has always been one of those weird ones to me, even though, and as you saw in the video just a few moments ago, even though I'm from New York City, I'm from Staten Island. But typically from where I was in Staten Island, I would mostly see Newark traffic. I was on kind of like the northwest side. So here's what I did, and this is why I'm making my commentary, so it could maybe be some good advice for you if find yourself you're a beginner, or not just a beginner, but just more amateurish and you don't know the procedures inside out. I pulled up Flight Radar 24. I use Flight Radar 24 for every single flight I fly for a couple of reasons. And by Flight Radar 24 and pull it up, I mean also subscribe, like get the lowest level subscription. It's really, really worth your time. And if you live in an area where there's traffic over your house or wherever you live, it's sometimes fun to pick out planes that are flying right above you. I'll pull up Flight Radar 24 for a couple of reasons. For every flight, I'm always pulling the most recent flight that has a logged start point and end point because I want to try and mirror my flight to the exact specifications of the flights that are operating like in the most recent times. So I'll try and get it at the right gate, and I'll hope that it has, it has like tracking data to show like where the plane pushed back from, and I like to see the gates that the plane landed at. In some places, it doesn't really matter. Like you might fly to a really obscure airport where there's only like one gate, and in that case, you just kind of wing it. I do this for a couple of reasons. One, I like to try and maintain as much accuracy as possible without pulling my hair out. And two, I like to know what to look for when I pull up my parking procedures in GSX, right? I want to know where I'm going to call my stuff to without using a follow me car every time because it's kind of cheating. So in this case, I pulled up the most recent flight, and this isn't a classic flight. This isn't like a 10-year-old route, which is something I sometimes like to fly. So I was able to pull up basically a flight from the day I flew this in real life. And, I was taking note of where the planes were landing. Another advantage to pulling up the most recent flight is you're typically going to be seeing air traffic landing on the same active as you're about to come into. Now, it doesn't really apply if you're flying from like 6 hours away. There's a lot of things can change as far as the weather's concerned. The active can change. But if you have a pretty good idea that you'll be at that airport in an hour or two, there's a good chance you're going to be viewing air traffic on Flight Radar 24. That is what you will be mirroring in the sim if you try and fly things legit. So I was noticing that just south of, well, just north of Staten Island and just south of like Brooklyn, the planes were taking like this kind of shift towards the west and going up the Hudson. I'm very familiar with the topography and the geography of the city. I grew up, in the city. I went to school up the Hudson a couple hours. I know the area very well. So I knew, oh, look, this is like the inbound procedure to 22 from the south side. Planes typically will they'll descend to about 4,000, 3,000 feet or so, and they'll just kind of scurry up the Hudson from the south to the north, kind of like the opposite of what Sully did when he landed his U.S. Airways plane into the Hudson, the Miracle on the Hudson, right? So I said, oh, easy enough. I'm going to do that, and that's what you're seeing me do right here. I'm just slightly manually tweaking things here and there to maintain speed and make things not ridiculous. I'm not perfect when it comes to understanding cockpit procedure, especially when I shift over to something visual and more manual. I still get confused as to, do I need to be adjusting vertical speed myself? Is the system going to pick that up on its own? These are the things you do when you are going through the process of elimination and learning how to fly an aircraft, right? And I'm no pro. I'm no V1 Simulations, who's an Airbus pilot himself, who's got amazing content. I watch him all the time. But, the Airbus is kind of set up in a very user-friendly fashion. And I've found that you could fly some very accurate procedure with it, even as an amateur. And it's very rewarding when you pull it off. In this case, it was almost by the book. I looked at the flight track of my trip from Myrtle up to LaGuardia on Volanta after I finished, and my flight path almost straight up mirrored what I was watching on Flight Radar 24. And to just kind of put that into practice felt great. So, like I said, if you're finding yourself in these situations where you kind of are approaching an airport and you don't really know what to do, pull up Flight Radar 24. Take note of what planes are doing for that approach. There's a chance that the runway will change on your way in. If you're flying offline, it doesn't really matter. You could kind of go against protocol and land on an inactive runway. You could land with a tailwind. You could do what you want, right? I do that all the time. Sometimes you just don't want to take that extra time. Because sometimes changing a runway turns your flight into a 30-minute further delayed experience, right? And you don't want that either sometimes. But, I know some of you guys are sticklers for accuracy. I know you're working towards that, and you have those goals, and you have the time to do it, right? I'm on the older end of the simming community. I'm almost 40. But for you younger guys out there who are trying to learn this stuff because this is your passion, like it was my passion, but you're working towards learning these procedures properly to become pilots someday, take a look at what's going on and then mirror that up with the other charts that aren't so well read or aren't so often read. And, you can kind of put pieces together of where pilots are getting their knowledge and their information for making their proper approach procedures, come to life. But anyway, and I hope you enjoyed the video. A little different than my more recent ones where I've just basically done edited videos from start to finish. I'm learning as I go. I'm learning techniques as I go, and I'm trying to make these better and better with each attempt. So if you have enjoyed this, if you like the advice, if you learned a little something new today, even though it was really just a very basic rookie level informational video, that for most of you might just be obvious, but for some of you who don't, if you find yourself frustrated on some of the approaches or screwing them up, take a look at what's available to you online. Take a look at Flight Radar 24, enjoy it, enjoy the sim, enjoy the learning experience, and let me know in the comments if this was a help to you, okay? Appreciate it. Like and subscribe. Have a good one.
500. 400. 300. 100 above. 50, 40, 30, 20, retard.